By this time in the course, you have been challenged to create a program that activates LEDs in a pattern while waiting for the user to press a button. Beginning students often write a for loop to activate the LEDs in a sequence, or otherwise focus on creating the moving LED pattern first. Then they have difficulty making the microcontroller detect and respond to the button because that section of code is an afterthought and is most often placed after the LED pattern code. The delay function is practically impossible to use when you need the microcontroller to be responsive to the user because it makes the microcontroller ignore everything else while the specified delay time elapses. When I was a kid and learning BASIC on my Commodore 64, I found the rem instruction. I thought it meant remember, and I put the instruction on a line with a sentence in English about what I wanted the computer to do when certain things happened, like the joystick being pressed to the right. The instruction actually meant remark. So rather than remembering something and acting on it as I had wished, the computer simply ignored those lines. The machine could not process English sentences anyway, so it was a lost cause in any case. Writing a code that appears to do two things at once can be difficult, especially without prior planning. But planning requires knowledge of available commands and understanding of how to build them together into a program that accomplishes the desired task, such as playing a simple game. Beginning programmers find themselves in a catch-22 in the process of algorithm development to create a program that just does what they want. Interrupts are a big help in this area. Usually you do not necessarily want the microcontrollers to actually do two things at once as much as you just want to not miss anything, like detecting when the user has pressed a button or changing which LED is on after a certain amount of time. Input or external interrupts are very helpful because you can essentially tell the microcontroller to just run your main program until a certain input is triggered. That input would be connected to the user button. So your code does not have to look for button presses from the user at all. Rather, the main program is just interrupted when the user presses the button, and a routine, that you also have to write, is run immediately while the main code is paused. As soon as the interrupt routine is done, the main code is resumed. Timer or internal interrupts are similar, except they are triggered when a certain amount of time goes by. You have to tell the microcontroller how much time, just like setting a kitchen timer. When the time you specify elapses, the main loop is paused, and the interrupt called an interrupt service routine, or ISR, is executed. Hopefully you can see how useful an input interrupt would have been for detecting user input, and a timer interrupt would have been for changing LEDs on a regular time period during your previous challenge.